College football now is live here at Chat Sports. You got Harrison Graham and Tyler Jones with you for the second straight week. We are here for the second batch of college football playoff rankings from the CFP Committee. Tyler, last week, not a ton of drama. There was some debate about who would be number one. That went to the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll go through our mock rankings again, but curious to see if anything changes tonight. None of the top 5 teams ended up losing, so we'll see if that stays chalk or if there's some shuffling at all.
So the thing that I'm watching for tonight specifically is Ohio State let Rutgers hang around last week.
Sure.
Rutgers not a bad team, though. Much improved from where they've been the last couple of seasons. Does the committee punish them for letting Rutgers hang around? Will we see Georgia rewarded for their win against Mizzou?
Yeah, we shall see. I still think Ohio State's resume is stronger. I think Georgia's the better team. So, again, I think that's the balance this committee's playing right now is, kind of resume versus eye test. So we'll see if a win over Mizzou is enough to potentially flip-flop 1 and 2.
And the committee was pretty high on Mizzou last week, had them 12.
I think something I'm more intrigued by is that 4-5 spot. They had Florida State at 4, Washington at 5. I know USC isn't great, but it was a ranked win, at least at the time, for Washington this week. Florida State kind of messed around with Pitt, who's terrible. Do they flip-flop 4 and 5? We'll have to keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, a road win, a double-digit win over USC.
Should be interesting.
Should be interesting for sure.
Shout out your favorite college football team. Let us know who you're repping in the chat. We're also going to do a little bonus segment tonight. That's why we're live a little bit earlier. We're going to take a look at some coaches on the hot seat and what their hot seat status is, so stay tuned for that. Tony's rocking with TCU. Kansas, should they be top 17?
Interesting number choice,
yeah.
17.
We'll see where I've got them in my mock rankings. They'll definitely move up. Solid win over Iowa State. Boise State from GM. We got Lone going with Texas, unless that's University of Tennessee from Lone Wolf. Brandon going with Washington. We've got Lone Wolf back in there with Texas representing as well. Bama from Allen Jackson. Well, someone named Allen Jackson has to rock with Alabama.
Of course.
I think that's just a prerequisite there on that front. All right, Rashard Lee, shout out for the Super Chat. If you guys Super Chat, we will get you on the show. Should Caleb Williams sit the rest of the year? I actually think the answer is no, Tyler. I think that would be a pretty bad look. If it's the bowl game, I don't really have a strong opinion. They're not even going to be in a New Year's Six this year, so that's fine with me. But I don't think you can bail in early November and start getting ready for the draft. And quite frankly, I don't think it helps them. I think Drake May has closed the gap enough for a potential number 1 pick that he needs to play the rest of this thing out with his teammates.
Yeah, we've already seen the athletic pick board a couple days ago put Drake May ahead.
Yeah, Dane Brugler flipped him. Yep.
Yeah, and we've heard a lot of criticism about Caleb Williams crying, going to mommy a couple days ago.
Do you have a strong opinion on that?
It's a loss. People react to it in different ways. Of all the things to complain about Caleb Williams, that's not high on my list.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So with that said, I think Caleb Williams is going to play out the regular season, try to stat pad a little bit and kind of prove his worth to why he should be the number 1 pick, because not to dive into too much NFL talk here, but there is a significant pay difference as you go further down the draft board.
Absolutely.
So,
there's no doubt.
With that said, looking back, thanks for the Super Chat, Richard.
Oh, another Super Chat coming in. If you guys Super Chat, it's a guarantee to get on the show. Lone Wolf, hook 'em horns. Hey, they survived. Oh, Tyler's throwing the horns down. Look at him go.
15-yard penalty on me.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if that'll apply in the SEC. Somehow I doubt it. Listen, they almost blew it against Kansas State, but they found a way. They're on to TCU this week, so we'll see how that goes. Let's take a look at some of the results, Tyler, from over the weekend. The top 5 unbeaten stay unbeaten. You mentioned Ohio State, 35-16 over Rutgers, but through 3 quarters, that was tight. It was 21-16 at one point, so that was not a blowout by any means. Georgia, Mizzou hung well, but the Bulldogs were kind of in control the whole time, 30-21. Michigan messed around for a while against Purdue, but pulled away 41-13. Florida State, they've kind of had some weird results since that early season strong start. They handled Pitt 24-7. And then kind of the funnest game of the weekend, Washington 52, USC 42. We'll see if USC is still ranked. If they are, I think they're going to leapfrog Florida State for that number 4 spot.
They very well could. And let's ask you guys, who should be number 1? Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, or Washington? Harry, I still think Ohio State's going to be number 1, but I don't think there's a significant gap at all between 1 through 5.
No, I think Georgia's still the team to beat and the most talented team. I do think Ohio State stays at number 1, but Georgia beating a top 15 Mizzou team by 2 scores could certainly sway things. We'll get some shout-outs, and then we'll talk about our sponsor here in a moment. Brittany says Ohio State. Dante says Georgia. Sam Houston from Bing Shorts. Got to represent your squad, Bing. Shelley going with the Buckeyes. Junior going Georgia. USC isn't ranked. We'll go through my mock rankings. I actually think you might be right. They may drop out of the top 25. UW to number 4, I think. Washington from GM. Tony's going Florida State. So we shall see who that top team is going to be. PrizePicks, the best daily fantasy sports app in the game right now. Tons of different DFS websites and games right now, but none better than PrizePicks. Football season's in full swing, and I've been making up to 25 times my money on entries for a couple of months now, and I'm having fun on a daily basis now because the NBA is here, college basketball has arrived, so I'm able to make entries every single night. All you got to do is select 2 to 6 players on any given entry, and if they will go for more or less than their projected stats. For example, you could do Caleb Williams more or less than his passing yards, Drake May more or less than his passing yards projected by PrizePicks. Pair those together, win up to 3 times your money. If you do 6 players, you can win up to 25 times your money as well. So get started with PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use our code CLNS to get a deposit match up to $100. And by the way, join rapper Meek Mill, comedian Andrew Schultz, and several other celebrities that are playing PrizePicks on a daily basis as well, whether it's the NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, or any other sport. PrizePicks is your home for daily fantasy sports. Check the comments, check the description. PrizePicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS. Okay, Rashard Lee back for more. Do you think they punish Michigan? I think the answer was kind of clear last week, Tyler. The answer is no. The committee wants nothing to do with it.
Right.
Like, they're wiping their hands clean of it. That's an NCAA issue. The NCAA seems to be taking their time. I think they want it to be a Big Ten issue. So, it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to take control of the cheating scandal right now. So, I don't think the playoff, unless the Big Ten or NCAA makes a strong declaration, Tyler, is going to get involved. I think they're going to evaluate purely based on what's happening on the field.
It's going to be the Big Ten, the ones to watch if there's going to be anything that happens this season. If the Big Ten bars this Michigan team from postseason play in the Big Ten championship, they could potentially take action. But the committee is not going to do anything, nor should they do anything in this case, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and what can they really do? I mean, I think they can. The answer is they could do what they want. They could rank Michigan. They could unrank them if they want to. But they don't want to get involved. They don't want to be judge, jury, executioner. They want to evaluate what these teams are doing on Saturdays, and until there's
it's not their job.
No, it's not. It's exactly. It's their job is to rank the 4 best teams. And until there's more information, that's how they're going to view it. Who do you guys think is the best one-loss team right now? You could throw Ole Miss into this, but Alabama handled them pretty easily, and Texas beat Alabama. So I think these 3 stand out to me, Tyler. If you had to pick one, who do you think is the best one-loss team?
I think Oregon looks like a complete football team. Dan Lanning's done a terrific job. Bo Nix is playing really well. They look complete on both sides of the ball. Oregon, to me, is that team. And with the way Washington had not played that well before this USC game recently, and that game was pretty close, down to the wire, road game, I'm starting to lean towards Oregon getting Washington in that rematch that we expect to see in the Pac-12
When they played the first time, Oregon outplayed Washington, but if you remember, Tyler, on 3 different occasions, Oregon went on 4th down, twice inside the 10, did not get it, and at the end of the game near midfield to try and ice the game, did not get it. If they get one of those, they win that game. I thought they outplayed Washington, but the Huskies, to their credit, made the critical plays when they had to. So I'm with you. I think the Ducks are complete. They've got a veteran quarterback in Bo Nix. They're playing some good defense, which I think Dan Lanning's style has come over, being the Georgia DC. Texas, they're tough to evaluate without Quinn Ewers. Without Quinn Ewers, I don't think they're a playoff caliber team. With him, I think they're in the discussion. And then Alabama, they're kind of just lurking right now.
Yeah, I think Texas, it's all about survival until Quinn Ewers gets back. This might be the last week potentially without Ewers. Alabama, I will say, I was very impressed how they played last week. I really liked the way that we've seen that offense start to get better here as of late. Super chat coming in from Dylan.
Heck. Shout out to Dylan.
Do the Cards get in if they win out?
Yeah, we'll push this across in just a second. Obviously, talk about Louisville here. I don't know if a one-loss Louisville team can get in, Tyler. I think they're going to need a lot of help. I'll say this, though. Jeff Brom has got to be the early favorite for Coach of the Year in college football. Did anybody see Louisville even being in the ACC championship discussion, much less an outside shot of being a CFP team? He's done a terrific job coming down from Purdue.
Oh, what a story in this whole thing of him coming back to Louisville, where he's a homegrown guy and was a winner there at Louisville, comes back and now has got that team rocking and rolling. Very impressive, to say the least, what he's done, but not necessarily think Louisville's part of the playoff discussion. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they could get to 10 wins and just get to the ACC title game, that's a hell of a season. I mean,
it is.
I don't think there's any question about that. All right, if you love college football, hit that like button on today's show. We only got 20 likes right now. Let's get those like numbers up in the chat right now. Like this video. We're going to get into our mock rankings momentarily. So if you're fired up, in just over 31 minutes, we'll get into the real rankings. We're going to go through our mock rankings. Then we've got a segment we're going to dive into, college football coaching hot seat status for 5 coaches. So stay tuned for that. But hit that like button if you love college football. Real quick, Tyler, let's go through our mock rankings here on today's show. How about Liberty? Who needs Hugh Freeze? They're 9-0 this season. I got them at 25. North Carolina, I think they might sneak back in there at 24, 7-2 on the season. Kansas State, I think they stay around where they were. I mean, they played Texas to the wire in Austin, a top 10 team, so I don't think you need to feel the need to drop them out of the top 25 if you're the committee. Tulane, I think, is the best group of 5 team this year. They're at 22. And then Arizona, Tyler, I don't know if you've been keeping up with what the Wildcats are doing.
Yeah.
They just hammered UCLA. They're 6-3 now. The Pac-12 is loaded. Like, they've got 7 or 8 pretty damn good teams. I think they're going to be ranked tonight.
Yeah, that Arizona program has been very impressive. And from where they were at just a couple of years ago is one of the worst Power 5 programs in the country.
Great turnaround here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Then you go to the next batch. Notre Dame at 20, Kansas at 19. The Jayhawks looking good there. 2 losses on the season for them. Nice win against Iowa State last week. LSU at 18, Utah at 17, and Tennessee at 16. Harry, between those 5, I think they're all pretty close.
Yeah, you know, LSU and Notre Dame each have 3 losses, but they also have notable wins, so you kind of figure out where they pencil in. Tennessee and Utah and Kansas all with 2 losses. It's kind of hard to bunch these teams together. They all have very similar resumes, so we'll see how it ends up playing out on that front. You go 15 through 11. I think you got to jump up Oklahoma State pretty high. I still think OU will be ranked higher, as weird as it is. They have a win over Texas. Oklahoma State, that 30-7 loss to South Alabama still stands out to me, and I think they will make a big jump tonight, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Sooners are ahead of them. I got Oregon State in between there. Then kind of like Kansas State, I don't think you really punish Mizzou for competing with Georgia. I think they're still one of the best 2-loss teams in the country. I got them at 12, and then 1-loss Louisville sliding up to number 11.
Yeah, I very well can see this. I know that might be a head-scratcher for some folks seeing Oklahoma ahead of Oklahoma State, but if we're mocking these, you go back to last week, and we saw that the committee didn't really necessarily care that much about head-to-head.
Texas was ahead of Oklahoma.
Texas was ahead of Oklahoma. Kansas was ahead of Oklahoma State. So,
and again, we're basing this off what we think the committee will do.
Right.
Not what our personal biases or interests are. So keep that in mind as well. We'll get to our top 10 mock in just a second, but we're trying to get to 345,000 subscribers here at Chat Sports. More college football content down the stretch of the season with the latest rankings every single week, college football hot seat status. We got a lot of coaches that could be under fire in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for our coaching hot boards in the month of November and December. On into January, we got recruiting as well. So don't miss out on any of it. Subscribe to Chat Sports. We are your home for college football coverage, especially this time of year. All right, let's go to the top 10 here. Penn State, Tyler. I'm not gonna take them super serious as a CFP contender. Go beat Michigan, then I'll take you serious. But they are a one-loss team. They're going to be in the top 10, I believe, tonight. Ole Miss, Tyler, just kind of lurking in the SEC West. I mean, they're going to need some help if they want to have a chance to get the CFP. But Lane Kiffin kind of just quietly plugging away over there.
Yeah, they've done a good job there with that Ole Miss program. And these two programs, I think, are kind of in the same boat. They are who they are. I don't see them being anything more than top 10 teams, which is not a bad thing, but that's just kind of is what it is necessarily. Number 8, that's where we find the Alabama Crimson Tide, and that is a team, Harry, I would not want to be playing right now. They are starting to get it figured out. Milroe looks a lot better.
Yeah, and I think Tommy Rees has done a nice job adjusting to what Jalen Milroe does well. They ran him a lot against LSU over the weekend, and I think he ran for like 150 yards in that game. Look, he's not a polished passer. If you get him off his first read, at times he can struggle. But, hey, if I'm coaching Jalen Milroe right now, if the first read isn't there, do what you do best. Take off and run, play defense. That's what Alabama's doing right now. Jace McClellan's toting the rock. So, Nick Saban's keeping that group together. I think there's a clear drop-off between 8 and 9. Like, the top 8 teams, I think, are true CFP contenders.
Right.
Beyond that, it's going to take something drastic, I believe. Texas at number 7. They survived. They almost blew it against Kansas State and Austin, but they got a key 4th down stop in overtime. The classic survive and advance game. They're on the road against TCU this week. Quinn Ewers, day-to-day, has a chance to play this weekend. We'll see if he gives it a go.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. But, hey, any win's a win at this point going forward with getting that done against K-State last week. Got lucky a little bit, but you'll take it whatever you can to advance and not having your quarterback. Who is the best one-loss team in America right now? Is it the Oregon Ducks? Is it Texas? Is it Alabama? Type O for Oregon, T for Texas, A for Alabama. I think it's Oregon. Harry, what say you?
Yeah, I think it's Oregon. We're about to get to the Ducks. That's where we have them at number 6 in just a second. I trust, as weird as it sounds, I trust Bo Nix. Like, I never thought I would have said that after watching him at 3 years at Auburn, but it just has clicked for him at Oregon, and they're a very talented team in all 3 phases. So I think it's Oregon. I mean, obviously Nick Saban's been there, done that. I just, even though Jalen Milroe's playing better, I think he's the worst of the 3 quarterbacks out of these 3 teams. Shelley says Oregon. Tony says Texas. Wayne's going with Alabama. Bo Nix, potential Heisman candidate. Absolutely. Tyler, I think if Bo Nix and Michael Penix rematch, it's very possible the winner of that game wins the Heisman Trophy this year.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is essentially out of it at this point.
Yeah.
So it is a wide open race.
I don't think J.J. McCarthy will win it because I think there will be a section of voters that don't vote for him with
I think Jordan Travis
scandal.
is still in it too.
Travis is still in it. They probably got to run the table, but yeah, it's kind of a funky Heisman year. We'll see how that ends up playing out. Let's get to the top 6 real quick because I do want to dive into this hot seat segment before we get to the committee's real rankings. We do have the Ducks at number 6 for reasons we've explained. I'm flipping 4 and 5, Tyler. Reading the tea leaves of what the committee has done, even if USC drops outside of the top 25, I think a 10-point win over them is more impressive than what Florida State did over the weekend against Pitt. I think Washington gets rewarded for that. So I got the Huskies at 4. Is that how you see it going tonight?
I don't hate that. I very well could see that going that way with Washington over Florida State. And I think that you might see, too, a little favoritism just for Washington having Michael Penix, of giving that edge to having the Heisman frontrunner potentially there as that number 4 quarterback.
I'll add this too. Florida State's best win, LSU, took a loss over the weekend. Washington's best win, Oregon. They just keep winning. So the resume's kind of tilting in their favor anyway. Michigan at number 3. I think the top 3 in general is going to stand pat. They played Purdue. That's not really going to impact how the committee views things.
This is their real first test this weekend.
Yep. Georgia at number 2. I thought about putting them number 1 with their win over Mizzou, but I still think Ohio State's resume is stronger overall. I think Georgia's a better team, but I think right now I'm going to lean on what I think the committee will do, and I think the resume for the Buckeyes is just a bit stronger right now. So I think
that was the first real test Georgia's had all season with that game against Mizzou there. So I think it justifies them being 2, but not leapfrogging Ohio State for number 1 at this point. Yep. But we'll see here in the coming weeks. Who should be number 1? Should it be Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, or Washington? Let us know in the chat, and we will shout you out to who you think should be that number 1 team. Harry and I are in agreement. Ohio State holds serve.
I think they stay there. What do you make of Michigan only being 4.5-point favorites at Penn State? I know it's on the road, but that feels like I like Michigan in the points there. I think they cover 4.5.
Yeah, I don't see Penn State getting blown out. I think that's the thing to watch for is Michigan might be a touchdown better.
Backdoor cover. They're down 10, score late to lose by 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's just hard to imagine Penn State really getting blown out at home. We'll see. Let's give some shout-outs here. Tony says Florida State. I got Miles says Kansas. Not quite. That'd be nice,
Hey,
though.
Top 20 tonight. Let's go.
Tony says Florida State. Noah says Ohio State. Marvin Harrison Jr. is too good. He's the best player in college football this year.
Yes, facts.
Daniel says Washington. Wealthy says Alabama. I don't know about that, Jim.
Pretty good slate this week, by the way. We got Penn State, Michigan, Georgia, Ole Miss. This is like an opportunity if you're Lane Kiffin. Like, are you going to be for real or not? Like, we know you're a good coach and a good team, but like, if you beat Georgia, like that's saying something. They've won 26 in a row. Like, you pull that off in Athens, that would be something. I'm not expecting it, but
I think there's a good chance this is the last hoorah for Lane at Ole Miss before he moves on to greener pastures. I like I said earlier, I don't think that he can do any more than he has.
Where do you think he goes?
That's a great question.
Lane Kiffin, you are a Texas A&M Aggie.
We have 5 potential openings that might want to hire Lane Kiffin here in just a moment.
All right, let's get to it here. We got to dive into this segment. Coming up in 21 minutes. Hopefully before that, we'll get back into some rankings talk before we hear from the playoff committee. But in the meantime, we got 5 coaches at prominent programs on the hot seat. Will they get fired? Will they get another year? Tyler and I are going to break that down next here on College Football Now. He's Tyler Jones. I am Harrison Graham. We're going to dive into 5 coaches on the hot seat in college football as we enter the stretch run of the season. Some critical games coming up for these coaches and these programs to convince their athletic directors that they are worthy of sticking around for another season. So, Tyler, let's jump into it. And I think the name we got to talk about first is a hot topic one. Jimbo Fisher, the head coach of Texas A&M. We got 2 statuses, hot or warm. I'm putting Jimbo in the hot status, Tyler. I think A&M boosters and fans cannot be happy with what's taken place since they almost made the college football playoff back in the COVID year in 2020.
Yeah, they paid Jimbo Fisher a lot of money to be competing for championships. And although Texas A&M is not a program, historically speaking, that has competed for championships, the money's been invested to do so. And they're not getting that return on investment.
Yep.
Since that Orange Bowl year, they've really struggled. I think the clock is ticking for Jimbo Fisher's time there at Texas A&M. You look at the remaining schedule, other than Abilene Christian, none of it's a guarantee.
You lose at Mississippi State at home this week, it's very possible it's over. Like, I'm calling that a must-win. This is not a very good Mississippi State team this year. Will Rogers has not played that well at quarterback, even though he is a veteran. You lose that game at home, I think the hot seat stuff really ramps up. Obviously, they're not going to lose to ACU at home in a couple of weeks. I'm not saying LSU's a must-win on the road, but if you lose to Mississippi State, it might be. So you got a couple of tests coming up for Jimbo.
If you lose to Mississippi State, you're not allowed to wear maroon anymore.
Because only Mississippi State can.
Right, exactly.
The Maroon Bowl will go to the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So I think that's a game to watch this weekend. If A&M loses that one, look out. I think we might go from hot to scalding in College Station for Jimbo Fisher. So what do you guys think? Should Jimbo Fisher get fired? Type F if you think he should be fired, or type K if you think Texas A&M should keep him. Fire Jimbo. Try something else. It's not working. Get the Fs going or the Ks in the comments. All right, from one SEC coach to another, Tyler, Sunbelt Billy Napier.
They were ready to fire him after the Utah game.
Yeah, and look, he kind of steadied the ship there for a while. They got to 5-2, but now they've lost 2 in a row, including a bad loss to Arkansas over the weekend, who's had a terrible year. He's 11-11 at Florida. I've only got him in the warm status because it is only year 2. Typically, coaches in college at least get a third season, but not always. But he just hasn't been able to get any momentum, Tyler. It seemed like he was starting to, 5-2, got into the top 25. And then you've lost 2 in a row, got blown out by Georgia, and you can't be losing to Arkansas with how they've played.
And beyond just the win and loss column, he has not done a good job on the recruiting trail and getting this Florida program the talent that they really need.
They lost Jaden Rashada. Remember that debacle with the NIL deal?
Yeah. So I look at that. Billy Napier, his time might be coming to an end sooner rather than later. And you look at that Florida program. We mentioned the history of Texas A&M. Florida, I would argue, has only had 2 successful head coaches in their entire history, with Spurrier and with Urban Meyer.
Yep.
Everyone else has come and gone just like that, and Billy Napier looks like he's another one of those.
And look, it's warm for now, but look at this remaining schedule, man. At LSU, at Mizzou.
They might go 0-3
Florida
down the
State
stretch.
at home. None of those games you're expected to win, but if you go 0-3 and go to 5-7 and miss a bowl game, you could go from warm to hot and potentially get fired very quickly. So if I'm Billy Napier, I got to be thinking, I got to find a win here somewhere. Like, I got to win one of these 3 games. That's why you couldn't lose to Arkansas. I mean, that is just brutal.
Ask Dan Mullen about how quickly things can turn in Gainesville.
There's no doubt about it. That thing spiraled out of control quickly. And based on the schedule, that could happen here as well with Florida. More coaching candidates on the hot seat to discuss in just a moment. But, hey, want to have fun on your college football Saturdays? There's no better place to do it than it is with PrizePicks. Football is in full swing, and I'm having a blast winning money every single Saturday with college football picks. But I also play other sports with PrizePicks. I even cross over my entries sometimes. NFL, college football, college basketball is here, the NBA as well. It is time for you to cash in with some PrizePicks entries. So here's how it works. You pick 2 to 6 players on any given entry. You can cross over sports, cross over games, no problem. And the more players you pick, the more return you can get if you do win those entries. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get a deposit match up to $100. All you do is pick a player, and if they will go for more or less than their stats, parlay it with some other players, you are good to go. prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS. Get started with PrizePicks today. Okay, Dave Aranda, Tyler, at Baylor, has had one of the most bizarre tenures of any coach I can remember. He takes over from Matt Rule, a team that almost beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship in his last season before he went to the NFL. Goes 2-7 in his first year, taking over that Rule program. Then he wins a Big 12 championship in year 2. Last year with a lot of hype. I think they were preseason top 10. He went 6-7. And now they're 3-6 this season.
And he was a popular name a couple of years ago for some big jobs.
USC wanted him. He declined the interview. They pivot to Lincoln Riley after the season. He's 9-13 the last 2 years, and 2 of his 3 wins this year, Tyler, 3-point win against Cincinnati, who's terrible, and a 1-point win against UCF, 2 of the new 4 members of the Big 12. That's not a good look, man. It's been ugly in Waco, especially this season.
Yeah, I know that we have this at hot, but I would still be very surprised if we see Dave Aranda let go at the end of the season, because this is a Baylor program that doesn't have the expectations of the A&Ms or the Floridas, the other ones we've talked about here. And when you look at that athletic department, football, basketball, across the board, they don't fire coaches a lot. Remember, It wasn't too long ago, Harry, the Baylor you and I grew up with was a dumpster fire, the worst program in the Power 5. They are still, as bad as they may be right now, a long ways away from those days that they were before. I tend to think Aranda still has one more season left to figure this out.
You might be right. The only reason I would counter that is we look at their remaining schedule. Not easy, by the way. Tough roadie this weekend against Kansas State, rivalry game against TCU, and a home game against West Virginia, a West Virginia team that is scrappy, if nothing else. 3-9 is not off the table here. 4-8 is probably best case scenario. The only reason I would counter you, Tyler, is yes, they're much better than they were 15, 20 years ago, but the reason they are is because they've had some legitimate high-level seasons. I mean, Art Briles had them competing for championships. Obviously, we know what happened there.
Right.
Matt Rule got them to a Big 12 championship. Dave Aranda himself won a Big 12 championship. So maybe you could say, well, he's done it before, you can do it again. But they have just tailed off so poorly these past 2 seasons. And one more reason I could see it happening is it's a new-look Big 12.
Right.
If they don't think he's the right guy to navigate them to be one of the stable programs at the top of this conference moving forward, then this is the time to make a move with more teams coming in. So we'll see what happens. I think these final 3 weeks and how they play, wins or losses, just how they perform and compete is going to be critical.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch. And the other thing about this new Big 12, Utah looks like the program that is the elite of this new league. They're the team to beat. But it's not like it's a significant gap of some sort.
It's going to be a league of parity.
Baylor, Oklahoma State, Utah, Kansas State will all be there among the top teams competing in this new conference. So with that said, Baylor has to do what they can to put their best foot forward. I would be surprised, but we'll see. Harry, we are talking college football all the time here on Chat Sports as we are counting down to the college football playoff. And these coaching changes are going to be coming in here in a matter of no time.
Yeah, and when notable coaches get fired or walk away, et cetera, we will have coaching hot boards for those programs, video breakdowns here on this channel. So subscribe, don't miss out. Should be a fun couple of months here at Chat Sports. All right, Mario Cristobal, Tyler, at Miami. He's a tricky one because they've recruited pretty well, and they are 6-3 this year, so on the surface, that's an improvement from year one. But they just have mind-blowing losses, like the Georgia Tech game earlier this year. They can kneel the game out, and they don't do it. They fumble, and Georgia Tech goes 75 yards in 2 plays, and they lose.
Against a bad Georgia Tech team, too.
They lose to NC State over the weekend, who's not very good. So it's like you look at this, and it's like, all right. But you also blow out A&M earlier this year, and you're like, okay, like that's progress, but there's no consistency at all. I think Oregon was kind of like, cool, you can leave. We don't really have a problem with that when he left Oregon. So he's more in the warm category. I would be surprised if he got canned. But looking at this final stretch, the next 2 games are going to be tough at Florida State and then a good Louisville team this year. I'll tell you what, you lose both of those, you cannot lose to Boston College the final week of the season.
Personally, I think Mario Cristobal's a fraud. I mean, this is the same guy that got fired from FIU several years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that you have a guy that is a very good recruiter. But as we see time and time again,
his in-game management is horrific.
Some of these teams hire recruiters and not coaches, and that's what Mario Cristobal is. And Miami, you got all these resources. We know they got money they want to spend on NIL. They can't be satisfied with the results that they're getting, and down the stretch, it's not going to be easy either for the Miami program.
Let's go to Sam Pittman of Arkansas. Huge win for him over Billy Napier in Florida, as we alluded to earlier, but I don't think the Razorbacks can be thrilled with where they're at. They're 3-6 on the season, 9-win campaign a couple of years ago. A lot of hype going into last year with KJ Jefferson, not very good. This year, a lot of hype again, even less good at 3-6. I do think opportunities are there, Tyler, to still potentially make a bowl game. Auburn at home this week is winnable. Florida International should be a win. If you can win those 2, you got a shot against Mizzou at home the final week of the season. Maybe that Florida win gives him some momentum, but before that, things were looking bleak for Pittman at Arkansas.
It ain't looking good. I can tell you that much with Sam Pittman there. He started off so well,
Yep.
and things have just gone downhill ever since. And Arkansas, the expectation there, if you average 8 to 9 wins, they'll love you there. That's all you got to do with that program.
And he did that he did that a couple years ago.
And now it's fallen off since then.
Yeah.
And I know that they're in the SEC, and Arkansas is not the easiest place to recruit, but they have some great resources, some great facilities. They expect more than what they're given. Sam Pittman, going to be interesting to follow. I lean towards him not getting fired. I think they give him one more year.
Yeah.
But that's a rich program. They could, if anyone can afford a buyout, it would be the Jerry Jones's Arkansas Razorbacks.
Texas and OU coming into the SEC. They're going to want to compete with those teams, no doubt about it. Name a coach that should be fired
Jimbo!
before the end of the season. I'm with you. The Jimbo experiment should be over. Drop a name down in the comments. Let us know who
Has
you
Neil
believe.
Brown survived again?
Maybe.
Huh.
We'll see. Name a coach that you guys think should get fired. And be sure to subscribe to the channel. College football news, rumors, coaching hot boards, recruiting, playoff rankings. We do it all. Hit that sub button here at Chat Sports. All right, we'll get some shout-outs here. Why don't you get us some shout-outs, Tyler, and then we'll get back to the rankings discussion. We can hop back into our mock rankings as we wait and see what the committee does here in the next 10 minutes
Name
or so.
a coach that should be fired. Junior says Lincoln Riley. They just fired Alex Krantz. They're not going to fire Lincoln Riley just yet. Let's see. R. Sappington TV says Tony Elliott cannot be fired. Tony says Jimbo. Bing Short says Jim Harbaugh. Tony says Jimbo. Tegan says Nick Saban. That's funny. Ryan says Dabo. Tony says Jimbo. Dylan says Jimbo. Ryan says Dabo Sweeney. XD Gamer 22 says Jim Harbaugh.
I have a hot take.
Vincent says Harbaugh. Go ahead.
Dabo won't get fired, but I could see him leaving.
Yeah.
If the right job opens. Could A&M do a 2.0 with what they did with Jimbo? Bring him in from a more prominent program? I'm just throwing it out there. I think it could happen. I would not be shocked. Keep going.
I could see that potentially.
Or what about like Florida? Billy Napier gets fired. Florida throws $70 million at Dabo. I could consider it.
See, and here's the thing. I think you and I agree on this, that Dabo has taken so many steps backwards in how forward college football has gone.
He's too old school.
But it only takes one athletic director and booster to fall in love with a coach that has 2 national titles.
Oh, exactly.
So he could still get a good job. Maybe not Alabama, like everybody connected to him for so long, but somebody out there would give him a shot.
SEC programs will want him.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do we see here? Rocker Farm says I could see Venables gone.
He's not getting fired. I know OU's dropped a couple here, but they've made significant growth this year.
Yeah.
So he's not going anywhere.
We are just over 5 minutes away from getting the playoff rankings reveal show started. Spam me as much as you want right now to break our chat record. Last week, Harry, we hit 190. I believe we can do 191 this week.
Let's go. Spam me in the comments for a shout-out. We got Junior in there, Tony. We got Lila Wright, Bing Shorts, Junior, Bing again, Tony, Lila, Dylan, Lore. We got Sports Talk. Let's see. Tony Fuentes, XD Gamer. We got Andre, Gilly, Deshaun, Tyman, Ryan, Dylan Heck, Tony Fuentes. We got Ohio Nut, Deshaun, Ryan, Brandon, Sports Hulk, R. Sappleton, Deshaun, Lore, Brandon Gibson, Tyman, the Buckeye. We've got Brandon Gibson in there, Ryan DeKing, Bing. This Bing Shorts guy keeps saying, go Bluffton University. I'm not familiar with that college, but wanted to give him some love for shouting that out.
Do they play against Blue Mountain State?
I don't know, but great show. The Kang, Deshaun, Ernest says your mom. She might be watching. I'm not sure. Chef, Sappleton, Deshaun again, Ernest, the Kang, Mitch, Seth, Timon, Dylan. Appreciate all the comments in the chat. While we wait, we can go through some of our mock rankings again as we await for the committee to unveil theirs.
Kind of rapid fire here.
We'll go rapid fire, 25 through 11, spend more time on the other ones. Anything stand out here, 21 through 25? I think Arizona has been a fun story this year with what Jed Fish has been able to do with that
Something
program.
to mention here real quick. JMU, who we don't have ranked because they're not eligible to be ranked, they are filing an appeal with the NCAA to try to become bowl eligible. If there's not enough teams to fill bowl games, they're allowed to be in a bowl. They are trying to get access to just in the discussion be in a bowl right now. Then we could potentially see him in the playoff rankings if they win their appeal.
That'd be nice. I hope that happens. I really do. 16 through 20 here. Kind of have a lot of similar teams and resumes. Some 2-loss, some 3-loss teams. Your Kansas Jayhawks, I think they'll be top 20 tonight, so that'll be exciting. Who do they have left, by the way? Final 3 weeks on the schedule?
Texas Tech this week. I'll be there.
Okay. In Lubbock, okay. So
no, it's in Lawrence.
Oh, you're going up to Lawrence.
Yep.
Nice.
And then they play Kansas State and Cincinnati to follow.
Well, if they
Sam, yes.
Just touching on the segment we just did here, college football coaches on the hot seat. Turns out a report just dropped about a half hour ago on the Aggies. Jimbo Fisher, as of early November, will get another year to, quote, get there at Texas A&M.
Well, we'll see.
Well,
Things
I'll believe it when I see it.
Things can change.
There's a lot of time.
If they lose to Mississippi State, believe me, that conversation will shift.
I'm rooting for Mississippi State.
Give me the Bulldogs. The fighting Mike Leach's, RIP, legend. Top 15 here, Oklahoma State. I'll tell you what, I think 2 coaches in this chunk should be up for Coach of the Year, Tyler. Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. I mean, when they lost 30-7 to South Alabama, I had the thought, this might be it for him. Like, I thought it might have gone the Gary Patterson road in Stillwater.
It looked like it, and then he started handing the ball off to Ollie Gordon.
Yeah, crazy that giving good players the football works.
I will say I have a different philosophy on Coach of the Year than most people. I believe that coaching it's half recruiting, half what you do on the field. And so with that, like, it's always got to be who's on top for me. I got to go with either Ryan Day or Kirby Smart, one of those guys.
I just look at
Coach of the Year.
I just look at like Jeff Brom at Louisville. He is working with nothing close to what these other teams have. But
maintaining is not easy.
I hear what you're saying. 7 through 10 here. It'll be interesting to see if anything shifts in the one-loss team discussion. Could Alabama jump Texas, even though they don't have the head-to-head? They handled LSU much easier than Texas handled Kansas State. That wouldn't completely shock me. I think we could see that. There's no way Ole Miss is higher than Bama because they got handled pretty easily head-to-head there. And then Penn State in the mix as well. Top 6, the only change I made, Tyler, was I flipped Washington and Florida State. Washington getting that top 25 win over USC. Florida State with just a 17-point win over a pretty bad Pitt team, to be honest. That's the only potential shakeup I see in the top 6.
Even with that said, Florida State, you still do what you
went out.
You're still going to be okay.
Yeah.
So not the end of the world if you're Florida State.
The top 5 teams all, and quite frankly, probably the top 6 because Oregon would replay Washington. They all control their destiny to the playoff.
Yes,
you went out, you're in the playoff. I think that's pretty clear.
Even Texas, to an extent, like your one loss is Oklahoma, and you beat Alabama, you're still in good shape.
Yeah, like Texas still has a very good chance, but I think in terms of 100%, no doubt about it, you went out and you're in. I think these top 6 fall into that category. Subscribe now. We're trying to get to 345,000 subscribers. Would love to get there before this week's games kick off on Saturday. So help us out. Hit the sub button, and we will continue to be live every Tuesday night for the latest college football playoff rankings. By the way, Tyler, I think next week, a little bit later because it's in between the 2 basketball games at the Champions Classic, whatever they call it.
Yeah, I got to get out of here in time to go watch my Jayhawks.
Go watch the Jayhawks. There
week.
You go. Here we go. We're going to reset here. Playoff committee rankings coming up shortly. Harrison Graham and Tyler Jones here with you as we await the latest batch of the college football playoff rankings as the committee is finalizing their top 25 for the second week. Last week was the first edition. Now we await for this week. So, Tyler, you guys shout out your favorite college football team, and while you guys do in the chat, What are you watching for tonight? What is the number one thing that piques your interest?
To me, I'm very curious to see if Ohio State is punished for letting Rutgers hang around and Georgia getting a top 12 win over Mizzou. Does that leapfrog Georgia over Ohio State? Also with Washington getting that win over USC, do they jump Florida State after Florida State didn't look too great this week? Those are the two things that pique my interest.
Yeah, I think those two things, and then also, is there any shuffling among the one-loss teams? Bama beat a good LSU team. Texas survived a Kansas State team that was ranked. So is there any shuffling there? Where does Penn State and Ole Miss fall into the discussion? So should be very interesting. Junior says Alabama. Dime says Louisville. Flying Brother says Ohio State. Dylan Heck says Ohio State. Andre going Oregon. So it is Dare to Dream. University of Delaware from iGilly. The fighting Joe Flacco's in the chat. Josh Filipponi going with Oregon. Oklahoma from Ryan. TCU from Tony. We stink this year, Tony. Gaming going with Florida State. Georgia Southern represent from CCT. Alabama, I think, should be 5 or 6. I wouldn't go that high, but they're playing a lot better. QT says Georgia. So does Dante. Brittany going Ohio State. Texas from Lone Wolf. Keegan going Alabama. Mud Dogs from Mad Mike. Michigan from Lila Wright. T-How going with Oregon. Alabama, once again, from Jonathan. Roll Tide from Kid. We got Taylor with Ohio State as well. Let us know who you guys think should be number one as we await the College Football Playoff Committee.
It's down the road for us up in Grapevine.
Yeah, just down the road as we're in our downtown Dallas studios, the committee finalizing their rankings as we speak. I still am going to stick with Ohio State over Georgia, Tyler. I think if they played on a neutral field tomorrow, Georgia would win. But if you had to ask me to guess what I think the committee will do, I think they're going to look at Ohio State's resume in a stronger light.
Yeah, I think so. Here's a question I have for you. If these 5 teams were playing this week, if we were to power rank how good they are, who's most likely to win the championship. If I let you put your money on one team, who's that one team you'd hedge your bets on?
I'm still going Georgia. They've won 26 in a row. Carson Beck's playing better. That defense is starting to round into form. I'm not a big, the recent season should carry weight into this season guy, but when you've won 26 in a row, that feels different. I'm still going Georgia. I think Michigan has played more crisp this year overall.
Yeah.
But they've played nobody.
Right.
Rutgers is the only bowl eligible team. I think UNLV is actually bowl eligible, but at least Georgia has played a few competent opponents up to this point. Now, if Michigan goes out and hammers Penn State on Saturday, much more significantly than Ohio State did, I could change my tune pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't trust Carson Beck just yet. I lean towards Michigan as the team that I would pick to win the title out of these 5 right now, but I don't think the gap is very wide. Washington has looked really good at times this year. So has Florida State. Ohio State's got the best resume. Georgia, the back-to-back champs. Michigan looks like a complete team. I think all 5 of these are capable of winning the national title, and I think Oregon's right there with these guys, too.
Now, Georgia's been the exception to the rule in recent years that you don't have to have an elite quarterback to win a title. Stetson Bennett was a very good college quarterback. I think Carson Beck's a good quarterback, but he's not elite. The elite quarterbacks on this list from a college standpoint are at Michigan, Florida State, and Washington. Those 3 schools have the best QBs out of the 5 teams on the list. Agree?
Yeah. And then just outside of there, Oregon with Bo Nix.
Yeah.
In that bunch. But yes, this has not been, for all the hoorah about this great quarterback class this year, they're not necessarily wearing the uniforms of the best teams.
I completely agree. Here we go. I'll verbalize the rankings, and then we'll get the graphics on screen. 25-21, Kansas State drops a couple spots. They're at 25. North Carolina back into the rankings. They're 24th. Tulane moves up to 23rd. Iowa, the most boring team in America, is 22nd. And then the Arizona Wildcats, 21st. Well-deserved. Jed Fish has that team playing some good football. So there you have it, 21 through 25.
Yes, not a ton of surprises there. I'm very intrigued to see how far the committee is going to let Tulane move up in the future. What is their ceiling with their schedule they play?
They've got an NFL draft prospect at quarterback in Michael Pratt. Their one loss was to Ole Miss, and it was close, and Pratt did not play in that game. So I think they're the best G5 team. Also, based on this, it doesn't look like Liberty is going to be ranked, despite being 9-0 this week. So they may have to wait another week. But I thought Kansas State should stay ranked, and they did. 20-16 here. Notre Dame at number 20. They plummet a little bit. LSU does as well. They're number 19. Utah at number 18. Oklahoma, Tyler, drops 8 spots to number 17, below the Kansas Jayhawks, which they did lose the head-to-head there. So the inconsistency of head-to-head appliance continues among the College Football Playoff Committee. That also means that Oklahoma State will be ahead of Oklahoma, who beat them as OU lost that matchup over the weekend.
Well, I think, too, with Oklahoma, you have to factor in their non-conference was awful. And
eye-test has not been there since the Texas game.
Eye-test hasn't been there, and the resume is not there either. Oklahoma, I don't think anyone can sit here and complain about them being 17.
No, that nice win over Texas. They're much improved, but I even said it after that game. They don't look like a playoff team, and that's played out. 15 through 11, Oklahoma State is at 15. So kind of a head-to-head domino effect there with the Pokes at 15,
Oklahoma State
16.
beat Kansas and Oklahoma.
Yep, so there you go. So I actually like that. They just haven't shown that in other rankings.
Right.
So classic inconsistency. Mizzou drops to 14, Tennessee up to 13, Oregon State at 12, Louisville up to number 11. I think their highest ranking ever in the CFP since Lamar Jackson was there.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Louisville's been relevant. How about the Beavs? They're last year the Pac-12. They don't have a conference to call home next year, and they find themselves as a top 12 team.
I'd love to see them get to the New Year's Six,
7-2.
That'd be awesome.
Jonathan Smith is going to be a name to watch on coaching hot boards.
Another
the
Coach of the Year candidate, in my opinion. He's done a great job. So 11 through 25 is set. We'll wait for the top 10 here. In the meantime, let's they actually are going to go to 10 here. Penn State at number 10 at 8-1. I think that's exactly how we had it among the one-loss teams so far, Tyler. Louisville at 11, Penn State at number 10. So that is where we sit so far. The Nittany Lions coming in at number 10.
And that feels about right for Penn State.
Yeah. Big test against Michigan. Can they get it done? I mean, James Franklin's been looking for a signature win. They got him at home. I mean, you can't ask for a better opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge chance. If Penn State wins this week, then they'll be right in the discussion among the top 5 teams in the country next week. Huge test for Penn State ahead here, and very deserving that number 10 ranking. Getting to play at home too. We'll also get to see if Drew here is the right guy or not with all the hype about him in NFL.
Yeah. Did not play well against Ohio State. We'll see if he can do it against Michigan. Ole Miss, so we've got the one-loss teams nailed so far, Tyler. They come in at number 9, the Ole Miss Rebels. They play Georgia this week. Top 10 matchup in Athens.
Yeah, big test for Ole Miss. We know they got a dynamic offense, but what Jackson Dart is going to show up. He's been inconsistent at times in the past.
Yeah, and in these big games against these big-time defenses, he has not played nearly as well. Struggled against Bama earlier this season, but another opportunity for Lane Kiffin's crew down in Athens. So the one-loss teams remaining. Next up, Alabama. So they will stay behind Texas. So seems like some more consistency among the head-to-head discussions this time around.
Somebody got in their ear and said, you guys are screwing up here. We're going to emphasize head-to-head this week, which means next week they won't emphasize it, and we'll keep the inconsistency.
The cycle continues. So Texas and Oregon, the 2 one-loss teams remaining. Does Texas leapfrog Oregon for beating a ranked K-State team? I say no because it was such a struggle. I think Oregon will stay at number 6, but we will see how they
I think so
reveal
too.
that here.
We'll wait now to see. Should be any moment now of that number 7 ranking, but we expect it to be Texas.
Hit that subscribe button as we're here every single week. here on College Football Now. Subscribe for more college football videos, the latest college football news, rumors, CFP rankings, and a whole lot more. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. We've got more college football coverage, coaching hot boards, recruiting, rankings, tons to come. And again, every single Tuesday night, myself and Tyler are here as we've got you covered. So 7 and 10, as we showed you. Texas at 7, Alabama at 8, Ole Miss at 9, Penn State at 10. So pretty safe to assume that Oregon will be 6, Tyler. Then we'll get to the top 5 once the committee is ready. So that is where they sit. They usually like to leave us on the edge of our seats during this time. So another reminder to subscribe to the channel as we will have more coverage. We can knock out a little read from our friends over at PrizePicks as well if you guys want to do that. Tyler is going to tell you all about PrizePicks, the best daily fantasy sports app out there.
That's right, Harry. PrizePicks is the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. And it's real simple to play along on PrizePicks, folks. You go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and you get the choice of 2 or more players on any given category, and you get the choice of more or less. Maybe you want to go with passing yards, or maybe you want to go with pass attempts or rushing yards, whatever it may be. Maybe you want to mix and match a little between a little college football and some NBA or NFL. You can do so. I've turned $20 into $60 with PrizePicks. You can too. Check out PrizePicks today. PrizePicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS. The link is in the comments and the description of today's video. Also in the chat if you want to check out PrizePicks. Play along with us today. Get that $100 deposit match. PrizePicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS to play along today.
While we await the top 6, let's recycle back through 25 through 7, as they're going to go pretty quick, so Sam can kind of just scroll those on screen here. We're going to await the top 6 here momentarily. It is going to be the Oregon Ducks at number 6. No change there. I think coming up is the first question, Tyler. Does Florida State or Washington get the 4th spot? Last week, Florida State was 4, and it's going to stay that way. Little surprised here as Washington did beat USC by double digits, but USC was not ranked this week by the committee, so doesn't count as a ranked win in the committee's eyes. The Huskies stay at number 5.
If they're keeping Washington at 5, I would guess the rest of the rankings are going to stay the same from last
For
week.
sure, too. 3 and 4. I mean, Michigan and Florida State played non-bowl teams in Purdue and Pitt, so we'll see what happens with 1 and 2. Is there a chance Georgia jumps Ohio State? But I think it's a pretty safe assumption here that Florida State will be number 4 and Michigan will be number 3, but still waiting word from the College Football Playoff Committee. If you want to join us live every week, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Fax machine having some issues over at the CFP Committee. Here we go. Florida State at number 4. So 4 through 8, Tyler, no changes this week. The only change really is Oklahoma losing and them dropping out from the top 10.
Yeah, and I got to say, clearly the committee values the non-conference with Florida State hanging on at 4 here. Michigan at number 3.
Yeah, I thought the Huskies would jump to 4. Again, minor detail, it doesn't matter. Washington controls its own destiny, so does Florida State. I think Washington-Oregon rematch is very much going to happen here in a few weeks. It seems like they're on a collision course. The Wolverines stay at number 3. They play Purdue. Their first big test this weekend, Tyler, against Penn State.
Yeah, should be a very good game. Michigan has looked very good throughout the season. Looked like the most complete team in college football, but they've yet to be tested at this point here.
Yeah, and that game's on the road in Happy Valley. Big noon kickoff on Fox. So that should be an interesting game. So final question. Let us know in the chat who's number 1. Type O for Ohio State, G for Georgia. Who's going to be number 1? I'll get some shout-outs here as we await. O for Ohio State, G for Georgia. It's going to be Ohio State as the Georgia Bulldogs stay at number 2, and Ohio State gets the number 1 nod here, Tyler. So all chalk in the spots that matter. No changes at the top. I personally would have flipped Washington and Florida State, but I don't really have a major gripe with what this top 6 looks like right now.
I don't hate it. And we've had conversations this time of year in the past where there has been a big gripe. And so for this to be what it is, okay, maybe you flip 5 and 4. I can live with that for the committee rankings. I'll go A-, but I'll say this too, Harry. It's not like the job they had ahead of them was that hard.
No.
I think this is the consensus, how most people feel.
There's a clear top 8 right now. It's the 5 unbeatens, and then there's 3 one-loss teams that have separated in Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. I don't think there's any question about that at this point in time. Grade the committee's rankings. Now, looking ahead to this weekend, matchups to keep an eye on. Michigan at Penn State. Alabama's on the road against 6-3 Kentucky. That would surprise me if Kentucky won, but it is a road game. You've got Florida State at home against Miami. Can the Hurricanes boat a test? You got Utah at Washington. The Utes will not be scared going into Seattle, Tyler. I think you and I both know that. That's a big game to monitor. Ole Miss at Georgia as well. So, and then Oregon hosting USC. Does Caleb Williams have any fight left in him? Does USC play better on defense without Alex Grinch as well? So you got 4 or 5 pretty big matchups on the docket this week.
Yeah, should be some good college football this week. That Utah-Washington game really intrigues me. Michigan and Penn State as well. We'll see if there's any big upsets this week. So far, we haven't had a ton of major upsets throughout the year. It's been a lot of chalk so far this season.
Yeah, we really haven't seen a lot. Lemon says F. Tony says A. Ryan, F. A lot of A's and F's, which is probably not surprising. Bing Short says A. Emmy and Alex say F. Lemon says F. Michigan beat Ohio State this week. Well, they don't play each other this week. They play in a few weeks. Junior says B. The GOAT says B. In fact, I don't even know who Ohio State has this week. They have Michigan State at home, and they're terrible. So I'm not expecting them to lose.
Big Ten Saturday night on NBC.
There you go. The GOAT says B. Renner says B. A+ from Ashley Kennedy. Sonar says A. Rob says A-. Emmy says F. So the top 6 are as follows. We'll take you guys to the top 25, and then we'll shortly wrap this thing up here on a Tuesday night. No big changes at the top. Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. Then the 2 Pac-12 Titans right now, Tyler, Washington and Oregon. Potential collision course for a rematch in the Pac-12 title game. They're at 5 and 6.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe if a few dominoes fall their way, could be a scenario where they both get in the playoff potentially.
If Oregon wins a close rematch and they get some help elsewhere, I wouldn't rule it out completely. We'll see what happens there. I do think that the Pac-12 champion should get in this year. I think that conference is worthy of a playoff team. 7 through 10, Texas at number 7, Alabama at number 8, Ole Miss number 9, Penn State 10. Couple of notes for these teams this week. Texas in Fort Worth at TCU. 3-8 against the Horned Frogs since TCU joined the conference. Quinn Ewers, sounds like it's going to be a game-time decision, so keep an eye on that. Ole Miss at Georgia. Can they give the reigning back-to-back champs a fight? We'll see. And then, of course, we've mentioned multiple times, Tyler, Penn State hosting Michigan this week. It's kind of a shame. I know Big Noon's going to claim that game, but a night game in Happy Valley for that matchup would be incredible. It's kind of a shame that's not the case.
I think Michigan's glad it's probably not a
yes,
night game at Happy Valley.
They are very happy.
11 through 15, Louisville, Oregon State, Tennessee, Missouri, and Oklahoma State. The big thing that we're seeing is, comparing to last week, Harry, the committee decided to change course and started to value head-to-head.
Yeah, I think that's become pretty clear. Oklahoma State ahead of Kansas, who they beat, ahead of Oklahoma, who they beat last week as well, as those two teams 16 and 17. Jayhawks up to 16, man. That's got to feel good. If they went out near 6, very much on the table. That could happen.
Certainly possible. Not an easy stretch to finish off.
No.
Texas Tech this week. Texas Tech's looked better. K-State the following week. They haven't beat K-State in over a decade. And then Cincinnati after that.
Yeah.
Watch out. Utah, they could give Washington some trouble this week.
Yeah, they're a physical team. We know they're going to They're going to bring the physicality up to Seattle, so that'll be a good test for Washington. LSU at 19, Notre Dame at 20, a pair of 3-loss teams. They're kind of out of any major discussion at this point. Arizona up to 21. They just keep chipping away, man. I mean, they smoked UCLA last week. They're playing some good football. I think they've won 5 in a row. I think they started 1-3. Iowa at 22, the worst 7-2 football team you will ever watch, but they find a way to win football games. Tulane at 23, North Carolina back in the polls at 24, then Kansas State rounding out the top 25. We're going to get out of here shortly, but before we do, don't forget to subscribe. College football coverage, NFL, NBA, news, rumors, more content. We're your digital sports home here on YouTube. It is Chat Sports. Tyler and I will be back next Tuesday night. Enjoy your week. It's going to be a hell of a college football Saturday. We'll see you guys soon here at Chat Sports.